The house on Blackthorn Lane had stood empty for years, its windows dark and its paint peeling like dead skin. Locals avoided it, crossing the street rather than walking past, whispering stories of disappearances and strange happenings. The house was a wound in the neighborhood, a place where shadows gathered and secrets festered. When Emma and Daniel bought the house, they were eager for a new beginning. Fresh from the city, they saw the house as a bargain, a chance to build a life away from the noise. But from the moment they stepped inside, something felt wrong. The air was thick with dust and something else, a coldness that seeped into their bones. The house seemed to breathe, its walls whispering in a language just beyond understanding. And as night fell, the house on Blackthorn Lane began to wake. Emma turned the key in the rusted lock, the door creaking open to reveal a dark, musty hallway. Daniel followed behind, carrying boxes and tools, his face a mix of excitement and unease. "Welcome home," Emma said, trying to sound cheerful. The house smelled of damp wood and forgotten memories. Wallpaper hung in tatters, and the floorboards groaned under their feet. As they explored, Emma found strange carvings etched into the walls, symbols she didn't recognize, twisted shapes that seemed to writhe in the flickering light. "Did you see this?" She called to Daniel, tracing a finger over the marks. Daniel frowned. "Probably just old graffiti. This place has been empty for years." But Emma couldn't shake the feeling that the house was watching them. That night, as they unpacked, strange noises echoed through the halls. Footsteps where no one walked, whispers just beyond hearing. Emma lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling eyes on her from the darkness. The house on Blackthorn Lane was alive. The first night in the house was restless. Emma lay awake, the shadows in the corners seeming to shift and pulse with a life of their own. Every creak and groan of the old house sent a shiver down her spine. Daniel, exhausted from the move, slept soundly beside her, unaware of the growing unease that gripped Emma. Around midnight, a faint whisper drifted through the room, soft, unintelligible, but unmistakably there. Emma sat up, heart pounding, and strained to listen. The whispering grew louder, echoing through the walls, filling the house with a chorus of voices just beyond comprehension. She reached for her phone, but the screen flickered and went dark. A cold breeze swept through the room, though the windows were closed tight. Emma's breath caught as a shadow flickered across the far wall, a shape that didn't belong to any person in the room. She shook Daniel awake. "Did you hear that? The voices?" Daniel groaned, rubbing his eyes. "It's just the house settling. Old houses do that." But Emma wasn't convinced. The next day they explored the house more thoroughly. In the basement, they found a hidden door behind a stack of old crates. The door was heavy and covered in dust, but it opened to reveal a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Emma's flashlight revealed walls covered in the same strange carvings she had seen upstairs, symbols that seemed to writhe and twist, almost alive. Daniel frowned. This place just keeps getting weirder. That night, the whispers returned, louder and more urgent. Emma felt drawn to the basement door, as if something was calling her. She hesitated, then descended the stairs alone, the air growing colder with every step. At the bottom, she found a small room, a hidden chamber filled with old furniture, broken mirrors, and a large, ornate box carved with raven feathers. As she reached out to touch the box, a voice echoed in her mind. Set us free. Emma's fingers trembled. The house on Blackthorn Lane was no longer just a home. It was a prison. Emma's hand hovered over the ornate box, its surface carved with intricate feathers that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. The whispered plea echoed again in her mind. Set us free. A chill ran down her spine, but curiosity pushed her forward. With trembling fingers, she lifted the heavy lid. Inside lay a collection of old letters, brittle and yellowed with age, tied together with a faded black ribbon. Alongside them rested a small, cracked mirror and a delicate silver locket shaped like a raven's claw. Emma carefully unfolded the top letter and began to read aloud. To whoever finds this, know that the house holds more than memories. It is a cage for souls bound by darkness. We were trapped here long ago, cursed by the sins of those who came before. Only by breaking the chain can we find peace. Her voice faltered as she looked around the chamber, the shadows seeming to close in. The air was thick with sorrow and desperation. Suddenly, a soft tapping sound echoed from the broken mirrors. Emma turned to see one of the shards quiver, reflecting a face that wasn't hers, pale, hollow-eyed, and silently pleading. She gasped and dropped the letter. The face vanished, replaced by her own terrified reflection. Daniel's voice called from above. Emma, are you okay down there? She swallowed hard. I'm fine, just found something. As she ascended the stairs, the house seemed to groan, as if warning her to stop. But Emma was determined. The letters spoke of a curse tied to the house's original owners, a family who had dabbled in dark magic, binding spirits to the walls to protect their secrets. That night, Emma and Daniel sat by the fireplace, reading the letters together. They learned of a ritual, one that could break the curse, but required confronting the house's darkest memories. Emma's eyes met Daniel's. We have to do this, for the house, for the souls trapped here. Daniel nodded, though the fear in his eyes was clear. Whatever it takes. As the clock struck midnight, the house seemed to hold its breath. The shadows lengthened, and the whispers grew louder. The ritual was about to begin. The clock struck midnight, its chimes echoing through the silent house like a summons. Emma and Daniel stood in the center of the parlor, the letters and relics spread out before them on an old wooden table. The air was thick with anticipation, and something darker, lurking just beyond the edges of the flickering candlelight. Emma took a deep breath and began reading aloud from the ritual instructions found in the letters. The words were ancient, strange, and filled with power. As she spoke, the house seemed to respond. The floorboards creaked, the walls whispered, and shadows danced along the edges of the room. Daniel held the silver raven's claw locket tightly, its cold metal pressing into his palm. What happens if this doesn't work? He asked quietly. Emma met his gaze, determination shining in her eyes. We don't have a choice. We have to try. As the ritual progressed, the temperature dropped sharply. A cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles and plunging them into darkness. Emma's voice faltered, but she pressed on, the words flowing from her lips like a desperate prayer. Suddenly, the broken mirrors around the room shattered simultaneously, sending shards flying through the air. The shards glowed with an eerie blue light, and from their fractured surfaces emerged ghostly figures, the trapped souls of the house. They floated silently, their eyes filled with sorrow and longing. One reached out toward Emma, its translucent hand trembling. Set us free, it whispered. Emma's heart ached. She stepped forward, holding the locket aloft. We will, I promise. The spirits swirled around them, the house trembling as if caught between two worlds. The shadows writhed and screamed, resisting the light. But Emma and Daniel stood firm, their voices rising in unison as they completed the final incantation. With a blinding flash, the spirits were released, their forms dissolving into the night air like mist. The house fell silent. The curse was broken. The house on Blackthorn Lane was quiet now, eerily so. The oppressive weight that had hung over the walls for decades seemed to lift, replaced by a fragile calm. Emma and Daniel stood in the parlor, the remnants of the ritual scattered around them like the ashes of a long burning fire. Emma exhaled slowly, her body trembling from the intensity of the night. It's over, she whispered, though a part of her still half expected the shadows to return. Daniel nodded, his eyes scanning the room as if expecting something to leap from the darkness. I never believed in ghosts before this, but now I don't know what to think. They moved through the house, room by room, noticing subtle changes. The air felt lighter, the stale smell replaced by something fresh, almost like the scent of rain. Outside, the first light of dawn broke over Blackthorn Lane, casting golden hues on the weathered facade of the house. Neighbors who had long avoided the place now paused, sensing the shift. Emma stepped onto the porch, breathing in the crisp morning air. We saved this place, she said softly. And maybe ourselves, too. Daniel smiled faintly. A fresh start. But as they turned to leave, a single raven perched on a nearby tree branch let out a sharp caw, a reminder that some shadows never fully fade.